Hello everyone, I have something a little different for you today. I've been searching for quite some time, and I've finally found a new project car. But it's not just any car to me. This is among my top 3 dream cars. I've loved all of these car stories that people have of finding their dream cars, and these wild stories that they've had just trying to get to it, and all the adventures and learning that they've had along the way. And I finally got my own. Now this is a bit of a long story, and I'd like to try to get all my facts straight. So let's start from the beginning. Now, my first car was a 1986 Toyota Corolla. It was solid gray, looks very similar to this one I have on screen. And I've been watching car shows and movies as long as I can remember. And one of the shows I watched was Initial D. It had a car that looked very similar to mine. Now, there wasn't any way that I was going to be modifying it. At the time, it was a car that my mother had given to me. I was using it as my daily driver to and from school. One day when I was heading to my grandparents' house, it was on a small 2-lane road. I was trying to make a left turn, and this turn was on the other side of a hill and on a blind corner, and some other high schooler came smashing into the back of me, totaling the car. Now obviously I was very mad at this other driver. They had totaled my car. It was a car that had been given to me as my very own first car. You can't ever forget that. What made it even worse is that my mom had died a few months prior. Now I would have absolutely considered fixing it back up, but it was completely totaled. The entire rear axle was bent up underneath the car. The trunk was completely smashed in. There were no airbags in that car, but I had just enough time to brace myself and came out of the wreck with no injuries, and I walked away from it. Now, fast forward a few months after getting the insurance claim from it, which was only $1,500 by the way, and several months of searching for a new car that I could get with that $1,500, I finally found something. On a side note, about 15 years later, they did fix that intersection. It's still on a blind corner, but it now has protected turn lanes on both sides. I don't know if that really would have helped me since it was blind hill, but who knows. So with that $1,500, I took another $500 of my own, and I found a kid that was selling another car. It was another Corolla, but as soon as I saw it, I knew that it was special. It wasn't quite as old as the Corolla, but it was still old. It was used, but it was in perfect running shape. It needed a little work. The interior was kind of torn, so that needed to be redone. The seats were perfectly fine. All of the belts and hoses needed an update. Now, I realized once I saw it, it was unique. There weren't very many around this area, and I've certainly never seen one of this era. So I started digging into it. This is a 1989 Pontiac Firebird Formula. This car has the option stickers on the inside of the inner console in the center. It's been many years and a lot of moisture has gotten into it because the T-tops were leaking, so many of the numbers were faded off. Now I tried to keep it as factory as I could, just because of the uniqueness of the car. All these pictures that are shown are of after all of my restoration work, and it's probably about 95% the way done. From what I gathered on my research, this car is one of 35 made with this exact spec. Manual transmission, gray interior, white exterior, 5.0 liter, out of a total of 2,000 formulas made in 1989. This car was built in Canada and originally sold in Greeley, Colorado, just based off of various stickers and maintenance logs that I found. It has some old Colorado emissions stickers still on the windshield that I kept from the early 1990s, so I believe it has been a Colorado car its entire life. Now, I don't have any estimation on how much I've put into this car so far. I was excited when I bought it. I've been excited driving it, and throughout the entire restoration process, it's just been a very good car. It took me a very long time to restore it because it was also my daily driver, so I couldn't just have it ripped apart in the driveway for a long time. I had to keep driving it. I bought the car with about 86,000 miles on it, and it has about 158,000 miles on it right now. Now, what does all this have to do with this new car that I found? Well, saving this car, doing all the work on it, playing all the video games, watching all the movies with all these cars, and I know which cars I want. They stand out, they're unique, and knowing all these cars that I like and just watching as they keep getting more and more expensive, more and more unreachable with the economy and everything else, I just haven't had a chance to really go for one. The only way that I was ever going to have a car that I've been dreaming about, that I would love to own, was if I was going to have to do some fixing on it. And if it's a rare car, it makes it even harder to find. So back to this car. Now, it wasn't the exact spec that I wanted, but it was within my budget. It was looking very good in the photos, not a whole awful lot rusted out on the top, a little bit on the quarter panels, which is pretty standard. And in trying to build my Pontiac, I came across a lot of websites that would be very helpful in trying to restore this thing. Now, I thought the easiest part would be getting the car. It was not. My first problem was finding a trailer. I didn't have a car trailer yet. I had been looking for quite some time to try to find a car trailer for my Pontiac so I could take that around to shows. The main issue is that it's a very low car, so much so that unless it has a dovetail, it won't even have a chance at trying to get up onto the trailer. I was looking for ones that I could maybe modify the front to give me a bit of an air dam so as not to throw rocks or damage the front of the car while I'm driving it. And to have a winch on one is mandatory. For any broken down issues, I won't have to worry about anything, not to try to push it up, I could just winch it up. I had found this trailer from a guy that was just outside of my town that was hauling a C8 Corvette on it. He had already pre-modified it, almost every single thing that I needed for my car. He used the trailer to haul the car for races. He removed the center boards to make it easier to do any oil changes or anything. He lowered the fenders, gave it smaller tires so as you could open the door fully without hitting the fender wells, which is what I needed for my car. Since this doesn't have a dovetail, he extended the ramps so it would make it easier for the Corvette to go up, which is also helping for my car. And which is also the reason why the ramps are sitting on the side of the trailer rather than in the back like they normally would, because the extensions no longer are able to be hauled underneath the trailer. He added the air dam, which is just a big plastic sheet, also helps protect from rocks. He added a winch. It's connected to the box, which has a solar panel on it, so the battery always stays charged. You don't have to ever worry about running out of the battery for the winch. I had come across the trailer ad and the ad for the car around the same time, and I thought it would be a good idea, because it was within my budget still, to get the trailer, because I need it for my car anyway. And once I had picked up the trailer, I was going to take it all the way out to take a look at the car. And if it was something that I was going to buy, I would already have the trailer. I would just load it up and take it home. Nice and simple. If only it were that simple. The trailer was about 50 miles away from home, and the car was about 250 miles away from home. That means it was going to be almost a 500-mile round trip, and it was going to take a good full part of the day just to go and look at the car and come back. Now, I would have loved to have filmed the entire trip, just driving down there and back, but fortunately, I don't have a dash cam, and it's extremely dangerous mountain roads that I have to travel on, so it wasn't a good idea to be holding a camera and trying to drive at the same time. So to start the trip, I got up fairly early. This is my only day off this week, and I had to be at work at 6 in the morning the very next day. So no dilly-dallying. Getting the trailer was nice and simple. I got there. I didn't have the correct size hitch for the trailer, so the guy was nice enough to let me borrow a hitch. I took the trailer and I headed down through the mountains to take a look at the car. It's a very nice scenic drive. I've taken it many times, so I knew exactly where I was going. But the first 2/3 of it was very uneventful. The trailer pulled very nicely. I had no issues with it. The trailer brakes worked fine. Getting used to the extra length behind me wasn't that big of a deal. Then about the time I got 2/3 of the way there, coming down from a mountain pass into this small mountain town, I get a warning light for engine oil. Now, obviously that's not a good spot to be in. This little tiny town, it's on a Sunday, so no mechanics are available. I would have to wait until the next morning to see a mechanic. But the car was running fine. It just had the warning for oil pressure. I got to a spot where I could pull over. I turned the car off, turned it back on. Everything seemed to reset. It was fine. So maybe it was just a faulty sensor or something, because the engine was running perfectly fine. So I kept going over to the next town, and it just kept happening. Right before I got into the next town, it did it again. So I stopped, reset it, and I just kept pushing on. I was already there. Why not just go look at it at the very least? Now, the place that I was going to take a look at this car was way off of the main highway, onto the back roads, on a farm. About the last 3 miles to this farm was just a washboarded dirt road. It wasn't even paved. After I got there, I started talking to the guy. He started telling me a little bit of the history about the car as we were walking all the way back around the property to go and see it. And as we were walking back, I couldn't help but think of all the Forza Horizon games, all of the other car YouTubers that have found these great barn finds just in the middle of nowhere, and I was staring right at one. My dream car inside this barn. Now, your definition of a barn find may vary, but when it's sitting next to these two old wagons, right next to this old farmland, I would say it counts. Especially when the car has probably 30 years of dust, hay, mud, and other things you would typically find on a farm. But as excited as I was, I still really needed to look it over and make sure that this is something that I was willing to take on. And to help me in this process, I started taking pictures and documenting everything that I saw. But sitting right in front of me is this old 1972 Plymouth Cuda. It has mismatched tires and wheels. The rear tires don't even hold air. It's absolutely covered in farm filth. There's the typical rust spots in the rear quarter panels. But the good news is that the body lines are pretty straight, and it has all of the glass. The side markers are intact. I couldn't really get underneath it to take any photos, but it looked like the majority of it was just surface rust. The exhaust was completely rusted out, but the piece of exhaust that goes up and over the rear axle was still intact, although it was lying on the floor. I made sure to keep that, so if I needed to modify any exhaust, I would have that bin. The guy said that he was the original owner. It came all the way from Minnesota. He had done a remodel on it a little bit. He put new taillights on it instead of the bar lights. He changed them to the circle lights, which I think look better anyway. Said he also put some upgrades in the engine, added some race type pistons, and a few other little things. The paint's a little hard to see just because of how dirty it is in these photos, but the paint's in kind of rough shape. Some of the body panels have some Bondo on it, but that's not an entirely big deal since I'm planning on repainting it anyway if I buy it. And the first thing I noticed in the engine, after all the cobwebs and everything, the radiator has a hole in it. but those are easy to find. And he told me that he did everything he could to try to preserve it and not have it rust out. He tried to protect all of the floorboards, all of the fluids, everything were drained. There was no battery, and he said that the engine does not turn over, so that's something I'm going to have to be aware of. There's a considerable amount of plastic and other trash, mice nests, and everything in the interior. It looks a mess, but that's easy enough to clean. What really impressed me was that the center console was not missing. It's fully intact. Yeah, there's a couple of small cracks on the dash, but that happens in every car. All the interior buttons and panels and everything seem to be there. The interior door cards and back shelf and seats were all in pretty decent shape considering the age. He said that it had been completely redone when he painted the rest of the car, and it used to have a vinyl top on it, but it no longer has that. There's very little remnants of it. The car originally used to be a darker green color. There's lots of evidence of mice and mice nests and other excrements. I'll have to definitely clean that up really good, make sure I wash it really good, try to get rid of any contaminants on it. As far as I could tell, inside the car, the floorboards were intact, there were no holes. Underneath the car, it looks like everything was intact, everything was there. Though the dome light appears to be in good condition, the rest of the headliner is absolutely trashed. It looks like they took the padding from the headliner to make the mice nests. It looks like they got in through the door windows. The windows are sticking out a little bit, so I'm going to have to readjust them, line them up properly again. It does look in rough shape, but it looks like all of the trim is there. Most of it's inside the car, not actually attached to the car, so I might need to get a few pins to put that back up. Now, everything basically looks too good. So what's the catch? Now, the guy selling this was fully transparent to me. The car had been involved in a previous theft attempt, which means they removed the VIN number. Now, that's an immediate red flag for anybody. You do not remove the VIN number unless you want a load of trouble. He did, however, have the title to it. All of the information on there matched the car, other than we can't verify the VIN. He even included a bill of sale that explains everything and what happened. And just based off of the condition of the car, just how it's been sitting, everything involved, I decided to take a chance on it. He noticed that I had brought a trailer already, and he knocked the price down just a little bit, which helped. So all that was left is to get the car on the trailer and get it home. Sounds simple. However, the forces of nature were going to prove to be a much bigger pain than I thought they would be. On the way over, it was pretty sunny. Sitting, looking around the car, trying to get everything figured out, it was starting to cloud up, the wind was blowing really hard, and a storm was moving in. So I had to try to get this up on a trailer and get home before the mountain passes got too bad, because this was still early spring up in the mountains. Well, the way that the car was setting, I couldn't get the trailer backed in, and we had to drag it through about 80 yards of mud to get out toward the road so I can get it on the trailer. Fortunately for farmers, they have tractors. We hooked up a chain to the car and attached it to a tractor and drug it out. It took several hours. We had started probably around 3 in the afternoon, and it was well past 7 and dark by the time we got it to the trailer. It had been spitting rain off and on at this point, just getting it up to the trailer. By the time we were trying to load it onto the trailer, it was just solid freezing rain, so that slowed us down a lot. We were also compounded by that the car wasn't wanting to roll straight up onto the trailer, so we had to keep adjusting it. And it was around about midnight to 1 o'clock in the morning by the time we actually got it loaded and tied down. After making sure everything was strapped down good and tight, I had to take off immediately since I had to work first thing in the morning. So I started off in the middle of the night, trying to make my way up through the mountains, and the freezing rain turned to snow. I got through the first town, no problems. That light still hadn't come back on. I was about halfway up the first mountain pass when I started to have issues. The snow had turned into a blizzard. In whiteout conditions, I could see maybe 50 feet in front of me, so I had to slow down to less than 5 to 10 miles an hour. And while that was already slow progress, that oil pressure light turned into a warning message on my dash saying that I needed to turn off the engine immediately, which was very concerning because I was in the middle of nowhere on a mountain pass in a blizzard. The vehicle was running just fine other than the warning lights, so I turned it off, turned it back on again, and it seemed to reset for about 10 minutes. By this time, there was sheets of black ice all over the road, and because it's a windy mountain pass, the corners are very difficult to steer, pulling a trailer in a car that wants to break down in the middle of a blizzard. I periodically had to stop about every 10 to 15 minutes, completely stop, shut the car down, turn it back on just to keep resetting that. The car was running perfectly fine. My gut feeling was telling me that it was just a sensor malfunction and that everything was fine, so I pressed on. On 2 separate occasions, I hit a patch of black ice on a hairpin turn. Even though I was only going a couple miles an hour, my vehicle still lost control, and I was able to pull out of it before I hit the edge of the road. A few really close calls, but I managed to pull through. I had been driving these kind of roads my entire life, so I was used to the conditions and how to control my car a little bit better when things go wrong like this. I stopped at the second smaller town just to let the car kind of cool down a little bit, make sure I wasn't overheating the brakes, and I really needed some gas. My vehicle tows really good, but it just eats the gas mileage. Without towing, I could have made the trip there and back on 1 tank of gas. I had to fill up 4 times towing the trailer. After getting out of the town, up and over the next pass, the snow had stopped and it was back to rain, so the road conditions were marginally better. Now the entire way back, I was still periodically turning off my car to reset the computer. I had finally gotten out of the mountains, and it was just a straight shot on highway speed roads with no rain, no snow. I just had to worry about that stupid warning light. It was a good thing that I was in the middle of the night in the mountains when I was trying to stop to fix that warning light, because there was no traffic. I didn't have to worry about impeding traffic. But once I was down, it was starting to become morning, and I was going to be late for work, and everybody else was starting to get up and go to work themselves, so I had a lot more traffic to contend with. Because I was out of town, having all these car problems, I decided to just call into work and see if anybody could cover. It was very unlikely I could find anybody, being it was about 4 in the morning, but somebody was able to cover, which was a good thing because I had been up for 24 hours at this point, and I just wanted to get home, make sure I was safe, and put this mess behind me. So now that I had it home, next steps was to get it registered in my name and get it all cleaned up. Since it was sitting in a barn for most of its life, and the windows don't come in all the way, I decided to keep a tarp over it to help protect it from all the elements until I can get all of that fixed. But because I'm smart, before I put any major money into it, I need to get it registered in my name in the car that doesn't have a VIN number from an out-of-state title. This is going to be fun. This has been part 1. Join me in the next one to see how that process goes. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.